On air.
All right. Well, I'd like to welcome Kyle Hunt, our guest for this week's edition of Face-to-Face. Kyle is hanging out in Michigan, where he's getting over a deep sense of depression over the World Series results, but he assures me he'll fight back and handle it. Welcome, Kyle. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for bringing up my beloved Tigers. If I turn my camera around, you can see my autographed Alan Trammell jersey, but that even looks depressed today.
Well, I used to have a Sandoval thing behind me autographed, and I got rid of that just for you today. So
Thank you.
I want to rub salt in the wounds. Hey, Kyle, I'm not going to give you much of an introduction except to say that we've done business for 12 or 13 years now, and this was the first time we've ever actually been face-to-face. You used to do a little bit more things with internet and domains. I know you still do some of that, but that was where we first met, through a third party, and due to the miracle of all the internet, you don't have to know or be around the person you're working with.
That's
And
right.
you missed your chance last week when I was in Michigan to meet up face-to-face, so we'll make up for it now. I'm going to encourage our participants to go ahead and post their questions in the chat box, or if they want to unmute and walk up to the camera when they have a question, we'll try to go live with some. So it looks like it's as good a time as any for me to step out of the way and turn this over to you, Kyle.
Okay, sounds good. So what we're going to talk about today is a topic that I talk about often with my clients, which is all about differentiation. But I thought I'd start by kind of telling you guys my backstory a little bit. It's not very often I get to talk to high schoolers, which is kind of neat. I was once a high schooler. I think even Mr. Macaulay was a high schooler back in the 40s or the 30s or something like that. I don't know how long ago it was, but I think it was a while ago. I actually graduated.
I apologize for all the comments about the Tigers. We're even now.
Okay, thank you. I mean, if you want to keep bantering back and forth, I got more. I'm sure I got more laugh lines, but
I have the mute button for you too, so be careful.
okay. So I actually started my first business when I was in high school. I graduated in 2001, so you guys can kind of do the math on that. And my first business actually came out of a hobby of mine. I used to buy and sell, talking about baseball, buy and sell baseball cards. And when the internet first kind of came around back in the late 90s, when you guys were just little tykes, were they even born yet? Yeah, they were born. They were little. Fair enough. I was trading baseball cards back and forth, and I started realizing, wow, there's a lot of people on the internet that I can trade baseball cards back and forth with, and I started a website, and then I needed a web host for my website, and through that I became a web host myself, and learned a lot about business just as just on the fly, learning how to run a business, money coming in, money going out, how to make a profit, and whatnot. So I guess my first thought for you guys, unrelated to the topic we're going to talk about, is don't be shy about starting a business. There's a lot of opportunities as I look back that I would not have today if I hadn't kind of taken a leap of faith and just started a little business. I literally went to the county courthouse and for $10 created a doing business as, went to the bank with my doing business as, opened up a checking account, and bada bing, bada boom, I had a business. It wasn't a ton of effort, but it was a lot of learning experience. So I'd urge you guys to do that. If you have a little bit of a service or something you can do, especially with the internet these days, there's a million different things we can do. Consider it, do it, and start it up. The sooner the better. And Jeff, I don't know if I've ever, or Mr. Macaulay, whatever you prefer, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but when I graduated high school, I went to college, graduated college, and started working full-time for a remodeling company. I worked for a remodeler in Northville, Michigan, and they hired me to handle all their marketing and advertising needs. That kind of transitioned into managing their showroom and their bath and kitchen designers, and a lot of it I was kind of learning as I went. And it was about 6 years ago, I turned to my lovely wife, Sarah, and I said, who was my high school sweetheart, by the way, for all of you lovebirds in high school, it can happen. We're married, 3 kids.
Please.
Huh?
They don't need the encouragement.
They don't need to hear that? I'm living proof. Whatever. I turned to my lovely wife, Sarah, and I said, honey, you're a stay-at-home mom. We got 1 kid, another one on the way. It's a crappy economy here in Michigan, not a lot of money in the bank to fall back on, but I want to quit this nice job I have that pays benefits and start my own business. And I did that because I saw a need in the marketplace for proven, practical, simple, effective marketing. And I had good success in the 4 years I was working for the remodeler in Northville. So I started, I'm a marketing coach, I'm a marketing consultant. My typical client will be a remodeler. So these are folks that are doing kitchens, baths, basements, additions, that type of work. And they are very good at what they do. They're very good at building, at designing, at putting it all together, but they're fairly crummy at marketing their services and generating leads and knowing how to do the sales process and how do we follow up with leads. So those are the types of things I work with my clients on. And Jeff, you asked me earlier about, did you ever think you were going to be working in the remodeling field, the remodeling world? As of 2 days before my college graduation, I would have looked at you and said, no, why would I work? I don't know anything about remodeling. Why would I do that? You guys, is you never know what doors are going to open, what opportunities are going to present themselves. And looking back on the company I worked for, they did remodeling, they did plumbing, they did heating and cooling. Did I ever think I was going to be working for a plumbing company? Absolutely not. But it turns out that it was a wonderful opportunity for me. I got to know the industry very well. I got to know the business inside and out, and I love the industry and I love the business. So you never know. You never know what could happen. All right. So is that good enough as far as an intro on who I am and what I do? And I threw a couple lessons in there too.
No, yeah, you're good to go. It's I think it's important. Two of the things that I really want to emphasize that you mentioned is this is a great time while you're in high school if you're going to start a business. If you lose everything you've got, you haven't lost a lot. And number two, it's just not always in an area that you might have always dreamed about where the opportunity will present itself.
Yeah, or even to build off of that, in college, the opportunity that I had in college, I went to Western Michigan University, and I actually majored in finance and kind of minored in marketing. But my start of my sophomore year, I became the advertising manager for the Western Herald newspaper. So the college has a newspaper, and I became the advertising manager and had 5 salespeople that sold the advertising to all the local businesses, and I would manage them. I would add put the ads and lay out the paper and a lot of other miscellaneous tasks. It was probably the highest paying student position on campus. It was a very great, very solid job. And when I met and interviewed for that, it was the fact that I had that entrepreneurial track record of starting my own business, of trying different things, of, it wasn't that nothing wrong with, flipping burgers or working at McDonald's. That's a great start too. You can learn a lot of business skills from that. But when he saw, Mr. O'Reilly was his name, when he saw my resume and the fact that I started businesses and was doing all of that, that was a huge, huge thing that attracted him to me. So, again, the business when I started school, no, enough to take some experience that I right. So I think it's very here, and I know in Mr. McCauley's class, you guys are covering a lot of more of the cutting edge marketing approaches and things you can be doing out there in the marketplace. You're not talking about TV and radio and billboards and all possible advertising routes, but there's so many different things out there. I don't really know what 20 years from now is going to look like, but what I do know is that fundamentals on how to run a business and how to market a business, they're still going to be there 20 years from now. So when it comes to how do you differentiate a business, differentiating yourself from the competitors, I don't care if there's Facebook or Facebook Junior or Facebook the Third or whatever comes in the coming years, differentiating your business is still going to be just as important now as it was 50 years ago, and even more so now, and then probably even more important 20 years from now. So a lot of the remodeling companies I work with, and you can substitute, it could be, accountants, it could be financial planners, it could be the local grocery store. You could put whatever industry, whatever vertical market you want. I'll talk about remodeling companies. A lot of the folks that come to me and say, I'm struggling with generating business. I'm struggling with turning those leads into closing sales. The reason they are is because they look the same, talk the same, and act the same as all of their competitors. And the reason it's so important as a business to differentiate you from your competition is because if you don't, if you do look the same, talk the same, and act the same as everybody else, the only way that I'm going to make my purchase decision between competitor A, B, and C as a consumer is based on price. That's going to be the only point of difference. And the kicker, and the thing that I've learned, and the things that you guys need to understand, is that you cannot cut your prices and be prosperous and profitable as a business. Yes, sometimes you do put a sale on, or maybe you are overpricing it, but so often what I find is that what you need to do is deliver more value for your services. And when you deliver value and people say, oh, it was so wonderful working with this remodeling company because they said they were going to get done in 2 weeks and they got done in a week and a half. The price they quoted me at the start of the job was exactly what it was at the end. I just really appreciated the fact that when I called them, they answered the phone, or when I sent them an email, it was a quick response. It was so nice that they sent me that handwritten thank you note after the first appointment I had with them. Running a successful business, whether it's a remodeling business or any type of business, running a successful business is not finding some magic bullet. You do this one thing and business just floods to you. Running a successful business and marketing a successful business is about doing a lot of little things right. I believe that with every ounce of business acumen I have, is that it's about doing a lot of little things. So I have a little. Are we doing good, Jeff? We good?
Yeah, you're doing good. We're good to go. We get a couple little computer glitches now and then where you sound like an alien from somewhere, but
okay,
you're working out all right.
All right. So, and if you guys have, I see that Nat Ellis is typing over on the chat. Pipe up with some questions. I'd love to field some. So Jeff, you can hear me fine. Why don't you? What are one of the ways that you differentiate a business? You would differentiate a business, or how do you differentiate even your marketing class? Talk to me about that a little bit.
From a marketing class perspective, it's been everything from changing the names from some of the more traditional names of, the creative names that we have, like Marketing 1, Marketing 2, that kind of stuff, to my advanced class, which we call Beyond the Purple Cow. They all have iPads that they use in the class. That's the way of differentiating. I think that we're looking at some ways of doing it this year based upon the market we go after.
Right. So,
go ahead.
So if I were to ask your students, right? If I were to ask your students, okay, what do you tell me about Mr. McCauley's marketing class? They would probably say stuff like, well, we use cool technology, and I like this about it, or I like that about it. But my question would be, what would they say to fill in this blank? I like this. This was good. But what really blew me away was fill in the blank. And I got a green screen for you right now. Are you still hearing me?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm fine. Okay. I'm not sure why that's happening. It's just
okay. So let's have a little participation here. So one of your students there, okay, you like Macaulay's class. It's good and everything. But what really blows you away about it, what you absolutely love more than anything else, is.
What's an answer?
What are some of the answers to that?
Hands-on. One of them said they like the hands-on, the doing the things. What else?
See it as practical use in the job. If I want to be a marketer, I can actually use this in my life.
Okay, some stuff they can actually use when they get out of school, as opposed to some classes that may be a little less practical.
Okay.
Several of them said my immense knowledge and wisdom.
I doubt they said that, actually.
Okay, nobody really said that. But.
Right. Nice try, though. I saw right through that one. Oh, your screen's back. That's something. A lot of times when you're a business or you're running a business, or I'd be interested. Some of the people that are listening to this, you might have parents that run a business or something like that. Go to a business that you are participating in. Maybe you're working for a business, and say, what are we doing that really differentiates us? If I were to go up to our previous clients or people that do business with us, and I said, what is one word that you would use to best describe us? Or, why did you choose to do business with us in the first place? What do we do that others don't? when you start to ask those questions, and I go through this exercise a lot with my remodeling clients, I actually have them, or I do it myself, call up their previous clients, because nobody can uncover for you what makes you different better than the people that have already been through your services, right? So doing a client survey like that and saying, you know, why did you choose us in the first place? What do we do that others don't? If there's one word that best describes us, what would it be? It's very interesting to get the responses and get the answers to that. A line I like to use a lot, and sometimes I use it in front of people that sell advertising and they don't like it as much as others, but I like to say advertising is the price you pay for not being remarkable. And, you know, there's a Seth Godin word, right? Being remarkable, you know, the whole purple cow thing. But does advertising have a place in our marketing and in our plans? Yes. But if we put more focus on, I don't care if you're a remodeler, I don't care if you're a restaurant owner, I don't care who you are, if you put more time and energy and effort into giving the client a remarkable experience, really wowing them with your communication, with your personal touches, with your follow-up, with the delivery of your service, the more you can wow them, instead of having satisfied clients, having thrilled clients, people that are going to be wanting to talk about you and talk to their neighbors about you, that's the type of business that we need to build, and that makes a business that is so much easier to differentiate.
So
I was just go ahead.
I'm going to grab off of Nat's question there. When you go in with a new client, you make a contact, you convince them to sit down with you. Do you hit them right between the eyes with the what wows your customers, or how do you let them know they need your help without making them feel like they're incompetent at what they're doing?
I used to kind of just fly by the seat of my pants. And it worked okay just because I'm charming and whatever other words you use to describe yourself. I'll make those up too. I used to just kind of go in there by the seat of my pants and start asking questions and learning about it. And one thing that I learned, I actually have a coach myself, a business coach. His name's Dove, and he's over in Israel. I'm not Jewish. I'm just a Christian guy here in Michigan, but we got connected, and he's my coach. And you talk about the power of technology. We Skype. He's in Israel, I'm in Michigan. It's pretty cool. But one thing that he's taught me is to have a better and stronger sales process, right? And so when I get a client comes in, I have basically 5 kind of through it. But as an example, I just talked this morning, as a matter of fact, to a guy in Minnesota, a remodeler in Minnesota, and I asked him some different questions. And then I asked him this question. I said, so myself and my wife did a wonderful kitchen remodeling project with you 3 years ago. We spent 40 grand with you. Have I heard from you since then? And his response was, he started chuckling. He goes, no. So I like to illustrate for them and have them tell me I need help, right? Because the next thing out of his mouth is, I know that I need to be doing a better job of staying in touch with my previous clients. I know that if I reached out to them more often, they would appreciate it, and I would also probably get more repeat work. I did a kitchen for them. They also need a bathroom. I get more repeat work. I'd also get more referrals. There'd be more opportunities for them to say, I was talking to my brother-in-law, I was talking to my neighbor, that side of things. So, as far as how do I start a consulting session with a new client, I have already in my mind, I'm visualizing how the conversation is going to go. I lead them through talking about, well, catch me up to speed about, just for 2 minutes, the history of your business and why you chose to call me today, or why you wanted to talk to me. And then let's go into the future. Tell me where you want to take this business. And let's talk about that a little bit. And then let's go back into the present. What is your current situation? What are your biggest struggles right now? Okay, and we'll kind of walk them through that. And then the last 2 steps are, well, what are the obstacles that are keeping you from where you are now to where you want to go? And then let me offer you some recommendations. By having just a systematic approach to it, it makes it so much easier and more effective. So that's how I approach that, Nat. Good question. All right, Macaulay, why don't you bring up some questions, or have the class ask some questions? I can't hear you. No audio.
Going a little cycle. Looking at the transition again from working for someone to working for yourself. And one of the things I like them to understand is the reality is you're never ready to make it on your own. You have to take the jump before all the lights are green, before all the ducks are in a row. Talk a little bit about that transition.
Yeah. So, and actually, this is some advice. This might be the first. You guys might all agree with me. It might be the first smart thing that Mr. McCauley's ever said. But I remember reaching out to a few of my clients that I had for a number of years, and I remember talking to you, Jeff, about, I'm thinking about making this jump and thinking about starting this business. And this is how I remember it. Maybe you didn't say it, but this is how I remember, and I attribute you to it. Is one of the pieces of advice you gave me is that the sooner you feel, as long as you feel confidence in your services and your ability to do it, the sooner you make that jump, the better. Because the longer you wait, the harder it is to start your own business. And that related to me quite a bit, because I knew that, okay, if we have some more kids, which now we have 3, it's going to be tougher to make that leap. The more established you are, the mortgages come, and all these bills and all this reality of being an adult come. So when I made that jump, it was definitely a leap of faith. But the reason that I had confidence in it is I had a system. I had an approach to marketing that I knew worked and that I believed in. And I didn't know exactly how I was going to get from where I was to where I was going. But, when you're an entrepreneur, you find a way and you figure it out. I also turned my previous employer into my first client. So that was a huge part of the transition of already having, some revenue coming in from my previous client, from my previous employer that I turned into a client. I would recommend, if possible, to get some quote unquote real world experience. The 4 years that I spent working for my employer, not to discredit education and whatnot, but I learned more during those 4 years of working in the business than I did in my previous 3.5 years of college. So definitely, look for an opportunity. And when you're working for an employer, just ask questions, learn things. You can do it now in high school. The more inquisitive you are. So there you go. Nat just asked, our class is starting social media campaigns for local small companies. How do you convince small companies to have a social media presence? Where do you start? You might not love this answer, Nat, but where I usually start with my clients is, I think, and you probably agree with this, so I'll preface it with this. In 95% of the cases, there are things that a business should be doing related to their marketing and to their sales that are much more important than setting up a Facebook page. So I preface it with that. A lot of people like to run after the new, shiny, bright objects and say, oh, this is new, oh, this is exciting, I'm hearing that it's really good and really works, and neglect the fundamentals and the things that we know that work. Staying in touch with our previous clients, building up our email list, networking, developing strategic partnerships with other businesses that can feed you referrals, picking up the phone and calling up previous clients, working on your website. Your website is your central hub of all of your marketing, and making sure that's up to date, solid. So make sure that there's a lot of other pieces in place before I get them excited about anything social media related. So that is something I think that's important that needs to be said. Now, let's say they are ready for social media. How do you convince small companies to have a social media presence? I think you get real practical about it. How would you like, Mr. Business Owner, and Nat, you can even type in some of the businesses you're approaching so we can get even more applicable. Do you think it would be valuable? Actually, number one question, do you use Facebook? Let's start with just Facebook, right? Do you use Facebook as an individual? If there's somebody that doesn't use Facebook, that really has no idea what it's about, that's even going to be a harder sell. But if it's somebody that says, yeah, we use Facebook, I use Facebook personally, I've just never done anything on the business side, that's probably a more ideal client than others. As you're typing the types of companies. So that would be tip number one. And then number two, sell them on what it looks like 6 months from now, right? Here's what we're going to build for you. And say how many likes, let's just talk about Facebook, let's not worry about Twitter and the rest. How many likes do you think we can get on your Facebook page in 6 months? Who is going to like that? Your clients, people walking into your store, that type of thing. And start to paint for them what that looks like as a finished product, as a result. Their problem right now is they don't have any kind of social media presence. The result after X amount of time is going to look like this. right? We're going to be posting however frequently. We're going to have this many likes. This is the type of engagement between our visitors that we're looking for. And yes, hopefully we're going to also generate some leads through it and some opportunities through it. So, talk to them about what the result of it is going to look like. Don't just come in and say a bunch of facts like we can set up your Facebook page. We can set it up so that you have a cover page. Here's how you post. Talk to them about the type of content you're going to post. Brainstorm with them about that. Get them excited about that. Talk to them about the people that are going to like it. Tell them, yeah. So how's that for a start of an answer? Types of companies: small convenience, deli, family furniture store, bakery, coffee, Indian restaurant. Okay. There's so much you can do with social media. My wife is doing a musical right now called Child of the Promise, and they just did a Facebook competition, right? So we got a third-party app that came in, and they were giving away free tickets and a nice dinner to one of the nights of the production, and they just tripled the amount of followers and likes they had through this contest. There's so many things you can do with it. Another tip that I would urge you to look at, something that I run into more often than not, is a company that gets excited about social media, sets it all up, and then doesn't post anything for months on end. A program that I use frequently, and maybe you guys have heard about it, and there's other companies that do similar things, but it's called Hootsuite, Hootsuite, Hootsuite.com. So with my remodeling clients, in the first week of the month, they will go into Hootsuite and type in the different posts that they want to post throughout the whole month. So some companies are doing one a week, some are doing multiple a week, but you can go into Hootsuite.com and schedule it. So I can say, post this next Tuesday at 2:00 p.m. Post this on the 22nd at 9 a.m. And all of a sudden now it becomes a lot more less time-consuming and easier to keep that content going. So that's something that a lot of folks are doing.
I'm going to jump back at what you said at the very beginning because I agree with you. I think that we do focus a lot on the new media. We can't ignore there's still a place and a role for newspaper, radio, TV, etc. But a lot of those things you mentioned, the keeping in touch with customers, the reaching out after sales, the building the relationships, if we take those traditional methods and use some of the new technology to make them happen, because something like doing a hangout like this with some of your customers, your client in Minnesota, which would have historically been a letter that you sent them or a phone call.
Right.
It's not so much the platform as how you use the platform. And I would recommend that you find out, like you're saying, whether it's the deli or the furniture store, whatever, where are they missing the boat in doing their marketing, and can these new technology-based and, quite frankly, inexpensive often platforms help them achieve that goal? Absolutely.
Something, if you have a client that comes to you or a prospect that comes to you, you should be looking them up and connect with them on Facebook. Maybe not on Facebook, but on LinkedIn, to say. Do they have a Twitter page? Follow them. I'll send an email to a prospect and follow up, maybe even follow up with a phone call and not get a response. And then I send them a message via Facebook or via LinkedIn, and I get an immediate response. So, yeah, case in point, we have all these different ways of connecting with folks. Are we using it to our advantage? There's a great company that it's a software package that you can record little 60-second or 90-second or 2-minute videos. So instead of me responding back with an email, I'll record, hey, Jeff, I want to let you know about, I got an email, I want to record a video for you. A video or an audio instead of, something written. Number one, it's going to catch their attention a whole lot more. And number two, it's going to differentiate you, and it's going to be more compelling and more interesting. Speaking of technology, something that is also part of our marketing is getting proof, right? We can claim that we're different. We can claim that we do all these unique things, but we need people to back it up. We need testimonials. In the past, that was a written testimonial, right? And now, collecting them via audio, collecting it with our smartphone, pulling our smartphone and getting a 60-second testimonial, video testimonial from our clients, it is so much more compelling and interesting and authentic and honest than it was in the past. And far too many people not utilizing video and not utilizing audio the way that they could. It's so easy, it's so inexpensive, it's free, right?
I've got a student that asked, and I might be able to guess your answer, at least one of your answers, but he said, if I'm going to go into a business, I want to start a business, what would be the one key piece of advice you'd give, taking into consideration that they're in high school?
A high schooler that's starting a business?
Yes. What would be the one key piece of advice you would give to them?
You said you said you have a hint of what I would say. What is it? What is it that you think I would say?
Well, I don't know if it would necessarily be the one, but I think based upon your topic, one of the things is don't start a business unless you have a way of making sure that you can own the niche, that you can stand out and again, I hate to use the word, but differentiate yourself in that niche.
Sure. So that would be, that would be part of it. If I'm a high schooler starting a business, I'm not as worried about finding a niche, or if you're from the East Coast, a niche, right? I'm not so worried about finding a niche. And what we mean by niche, it could be a specific type of service you offer, and you only offer that. It could be in a vertical market, right? My niche is in a vertical market, just with remodeling companies. If a accountant calls me up, I don't work with them. And there's so many benefits to doing that. I blog for Remodeling Magazine. I just spoke to the National Remodeling Show because I focus in on one specific niche in one specific area. If I'm a high schooler that's starting a business, what's my biggest piece of advice is to pull the trigger and start it. That would be my biggest piece of advice. We get so into analysis paralysis. If you want to, for every 100 people that say, oh, I'd really like to start a business, I could probably count on one hand the actual people that do. So the best way to learn is to throw yourself in the fire and start it. And it's so inexpensive to start a business that that's my biggest piece of advice is take action and start it. And it's amazing just by taking that first step how you realize what the next step is, and you can kind of start moving ahead.
So you started a couple different ones. Let's say you wake up tomorrow and the remodeling is not your gig anymore. What have you learned from your previous experiences that you might do differently in starting up your next business?
Well, I don't know if I do. I didn't first start with a vertical niche. I kind of flailed around for a little bit, helping anybody and everybody. I'd probably get very specific on who I want to serve and get real clear on my ideal client as soon as possible. And I'd continue. I think I've waited too long. Two things. Number one, to make sure I'm following a specific process, right? In everything I do, the way I handle an initial sales call, the way I serve my clients, document your process. The more process you can make it where it's repeatable, the easier it is and the more profitable you are. And I think the last thing is, for about before this year, in 2011, 2012, I was still doing well. I was supporting my family and all that, but I kind of hit a roadblock. Don't be shy about getting coaches and getting people to help you. Here I am preaching all day and every day the value of having a coach and a consultant and an outside eye on your business, and I waited until about 5 years into my business to finally realize that I needed that. And I ponied up some money, and it's been very, very helpful and eye-opening and given me clarity that I wish I would have done that sooner.
What about was it Dove, your coach in
Yeah.
Israel? What's the one biggest benefit you've received from him in his coaching advice?
It's all about the way I'm packaging my services. I used to say, I do marketing for remodelers. You're a remodeler. Here's 8 different things that you need to work on: referral program, website, sales process, etc. Let's get to work. Here's what I charge a month. Let's go. And what I'm doing now is getting very specific about, here is the problem that you have. Here is the result that it's going to look like when we have that problem solved. And let's just focus on that problem. I estimate it's going to take us about 3 months or 4 months, and we're going to focus on that and only work on that. And clients have liked that more. I've enjoyed coaching it more, and I'm delivering better results through that. So my biggest takeaway has been the way I'm offering my services. And it's in any business, it's a constant evolving thing. You're always tweaking. You're always changing. That's kind of the fun of it.
Okay, and Nat's curious, and I'm sure this has happened. You have a great piece of advice. You feel that it's rational, it's well thought out, well prepared, but the client just doesn't bite. A, how do you continue to try to convince them? And B, what do you do with the one who just doesn't buy into your concept? And specifically, he's looking for some examples of things you've done that have been successful for some of your clients. Sure.
So have you ever had a client turn down your advice? Yes. And sometimes that happens the first time. Okay, there's some kind of objection here. They have some kind of objection to doing it, and you can dig in and kind of peel back the layers and realize what it is. So sometimes that's the case. It's how do I best answer that? yes, they do turn down my advice, and sometimes I walk away from it. There's something that we need to learn in business is that it's okay to fire clients. You know, it's if they're not an ideal client and they don't value what you offer, you don't have to work for them. And frankly, it's the clients that I bring on that are not exactly what I really specialize in, what my sweet spot is, that gives me the most stress and causes the most trouble in my business. So, you know, the more specific, you know who your ideal client is, and if they don't fit, turn them down, send them to another person, offer them another recommendation. That's okay. How do you convince them about your plan? 5 years ago when I first started my business, it was pretty tough to convince them of my plan because I didn't have a lot of proof. It is getting a lot easier now because I have track record after track record that I can point to that says, you know what, Jeff, you're just like Bill Tanas and Brett Olexon and Dan and, you know, Tom Shapiro down in Florida, etc. I can say your objections and what you're going through is exactly what these guys went through. Here's what we did. Here is the results of it. So as I've gone, it's getting a whole lot easier for people to believe me more. I've reached out. I just said I spoke at the National Remodeling Show in Baltimore. When you position yourself as an expert in the industry, all of a sudden your believability goes way up. You don't have to convince people as much anymore, and they don't turn down your advice as much, I've found. You know, so that side of things. Another tip, another thing that you mentioned that my phone's buzzing. Another thing that you asked about earlier as far as advice. The other advice I would give is, and I think this is applicable for a lot of folks, the biggest success I had, and probably the reason I was able to get through the first few years of my business, is because I was very active in trying to find people that I could speak in front of. And that did multiple things for me. It opened up a market. You know, I just went to every home builder association in Michigan. I called them up. I followed up with them. I said, I want to speak. Do you have an opportunity to come speak? I did it for free. I drove, 4 hours to speak for 20 minutes and then drove back. But it opened up relationships. It opened up opportunities. That is going to be so much more effective. Developing relationships with people is so much more effective than placing a billboard ad or running an ad in your local paper or stuff like that. People know people. Find those people that can refer you. And that, as far as success stories of your consulting, I had a client in Chicago just ask me that when they were a prospect about 2 months ago. Well, tell me, what's your success? And I started thinking about it. And yes, I have a client. I could point to specific things, right? I could say I have a client, Oddfellows Contracting, Williamston, Michigan. They were doing $750,000 in revenue. 2 years later, they're over $2 million in revenue. He's working less. His stress level's less. He's more profitable than ever before. He's got more ideal clients. He's turning down non-ideal clients. I could give you that example. The problem with that example is that this prospect in Chicago, that may not be what they need. That may not work for them. Sometimes it's just offering people clarity. Instead of, oh, my mind is all over the place, there's 10,000 things I can do to market my business, and giving them clarity on what to do next, what to focus on, where to put their energy. The success that people have, or it goes across the board. It could be one idea I gave them that's working gangbusters. It could be, wow, they just now know what they should focus on, etc. I'm droning on that, and I'm thinking of myself as a high schooler, and I said, you know what, that's not very interesting, so I should stop talking because they're probably yawning. The other stuff I said was brilliant and interesting. That one wasn't as interesting.
I was just going to hit you up with the last question, and then you caught me so off guard with that brilliant observation about droning on that I totally lost it. So I don't have that last brilliant question for you. I do want to thank you for taking the time out. I know it's when you're self-employed, it's a two-edged sword. You can make the time, but also you don't always have the time to make. And we've experienced a lot of people who have taken the time out of their schedule to share some things with our students, and they give us a chance to follow up on these. And you may, don't be surprised, you get an email or two from some kids and
sure.
Start checking you out online and in the social media, etc. But a big thank you from all of us, and for those who are joined us live, as well as those who will watch you on our archive version. And we appreciate you taking that time out today.
Very good. Thanks for inviting me, Jeff.
Hey,
Mr. McCauley,
yeah.
Professor McCauley, whatever you prefer.
Doctor would be better.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See you later.
We'll see you.